Hey guys, it's Keith. Today I'm going to take a test about communism. I grew up thinking communism was cool, like all lefty teenagers, I guess, growing up in the 90s. Marx has a lot of great points. Nowadays, I think communism is absurd, and having traveled to a lot of post communist countries and current communist countries, um, Cuba, Vietnam, all of Eastern Europe, I've certainly become disillusioned with the effects of actual communism. If we want to talk about theoretical communism, I think it's not based in reality. I think it's very ideological and idealistic in terms of like what people's natural drives are, etc. I think capitalism does a much better job of taking stuff like that into account. So I get very annoyed these days with communists because I just think that I don't know. I actually don't know. Like, is the goal to actually make more countries communist? Because that's like such a fail. I don't understand why do that. But if you're like out to critique capitalism, that's fine and good. Like I do that. So I just thought I would go through this test and yeah, let's see how it goes. Communism is a social and political ideology whose ultimate goal is the establishment of a communist society, which is defined as a socioeconomic order based on common ownership and the absence of social classes, inequality, and private property. Good luck. Good luck with that. Every time a hierarchy is toppled in the name of a hierarchless system, it's just a new hierarchy with the revolters on top. So I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. I mean, it's Animal Farm basically. While communism encompasses several of schools of thought, nice typo, this test uses the classical Marxist texts and history as its foundations to determine whether you qualify as a Marxian communist. So let's see. I'll try and go through this somewhat quickly. Question 1 of 24. The unequal power relations between business owners and workers are inherently exploitative. I do not agree with that. I do not agree with that. The fact is that, I mean, look, how are you using this word exploitative, inherently exploitative? Like, the thing is that, it kind of tires me out to just think about explaining all this. Basically, if you have an idea and you have capital to invest in that idea and you want to hire someone to help you do it and they have a certain price on their work value, that's fair. If like someone like it's important that workers feel like they're being paid fairly. It's not important that they literally split the profits with the owner. Like, a worker is exploited if they are enslaved, if all of their energy is being used for the betterment of someone else and they are struggling at the end of the day. That's bad, but there are plenty of workers that are paid handily. Yeah, I just don't see that. I don't see it. I mean, I'm not going to fully disagree because I do think there's some truth in the fact is that an owner has power over a worker. There's some amount of an inherent power dynamic there. Yeah. 2. Slacking is part of human nature and will only increase in societies where there is no promise of personal financial gain. Slacking. Is that the official terminology? As a slacker myself, I do tend to agree with this. In that Marxist saying of to each according to his abilities, like my abilities are less because I'm not like as ambitious and industrious as a lot of people. I'm a slacker. So I'm bringing less to the table. I still think that I deserve my needs met, but my needs also are more modest, I think, than some people's needs. I don't need the biggest house or the nicest car. Like, those are not needs that I'm interested in. So it suits me, and I think people self-sort in that way, and that does create a natural hierarchy. That's not a condition of capitalism. That didn't come from that. That's always there no matter what. So I do kind of agree with this. 3. The state should be responsible for providing all citizens with basic necessities, including food, housing, medical care, and education. This could only be said in an industrialized place. Like, you think that like the newest country of the world, South Sudan, owes all of its citizens these things? Like, how are you going to do that? There are failed states that obviously don't meet these, but even like functioning states don't have to fully do this. I think it's a big ask. I would like to see the U.S. do this because the U.S. is a wealthy nation that can provide for people, but that doesn't mean that every place can. But I do want this stuff to happen, and if you're gonna create a government, maybe this is one of the goals. I think it's like on a Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's up there to like, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I should kind of. I do kind of agree with this. The individual's best interests are indistinguishable from society's best interest. I fully agree with that. What's best for you is best for me. It's best for everyone. Like, I want to see everybody excel and flourish. I'm really into that human flourishing thing. Class is not a sufficiently homogeneous entity to form the basis of serious societal analysis. I mean, the irony here to me is that class actually is a better metric to analyze society on, and nowadays it's all about race and gender and nationhood and sexual orientation, and I think it's so weird that we're trying to use those things as parameters or, you know, qualities to measure when like those are totally irrelevant. There are rich black people, there are poor black people, there are rich white people, there are poor black women, there are rich, there are poor white men, there are rich black women. Class is better, like I would rather see aid being given to poor people than to a certain, sexual minority or something like that. So I kind of disagree with this. In this sense, I'm more classically Marxist than modern communists. Because like nowadays, in the spaces I've seen, in the subreddits I've been kicked out of for asking questions, it's like all about the like brotherhood and sisterhood of like every, ethnicity and sexual status and yada yada. It's like not about class anymore. It's about these other cultural Marxist things. Whereas it's like, if we stuck with class, you'd have me more. Like, I feel like, I'm like a classical Bernie guy. So to me, let's help the poor. You know what I mean? So I kind of disagree. The internal contradictions of capitalism are so great that the free market system will eventually collapse. The thing is that the free market system is alloyed with plenty of government interventions, and it's not collapsing. It's thriving because we know how to regulate it properly. It's a balancing act, but the USA, Sweden, Germany, all these places are mixed economies. They're not purely laissez-faire capitalist societies. And that level, whatever degree of government intervention is involved in each place, that helps in general, that's the idea, from preventing something like a societal collapse. I'm not sure which classically free market systems have collapsed. Plenty of communist systems have collapsed. I disagree with this slightly. The thing is, like, are you talking about a purely capitalist system? Like, has that even been tried? I mean, like, mercantilism maybe, or like, I don't know, New Amsterdam on the island of Manhattan back in the day. I disagree. Capitalism is a pretty good, it's worked pretty well, and I used to hate saying stuff like that, and I'm not a capitalist, so to speak, but I enjoy living in societies that are. Freedom is cool. I fully disagree with this statement. Poverty, disease, and early death are endemic to capitalism. What an insane thing to say. there's no way this is true. Like, it's like literally the opposite. Like, capitalist societies, like, let's say you want to call the US the most capitalist society ever, which I don't even know if that's true, but like, poverty as a percentage of the population is so low compared to like the the record of human history is full of such poverty that it's like almost like not even mentioned, because everybody was poor until recently. I think most people were poor, and I feel like capitalism has like gotten so many more people out of poverty. So that's like the exact opposite. Disease and early death. I mean, I think that the death rate, or rather the, what is it, the like lifespans are only increasing in highly capitalist places. So this doesn't make any sense at all. 8. All credit and loans should be centralized in one national bank controlled by the state. I don't even like what prompts somebody to think something like that. It sounds so authoritarian, like I want to control everybody's money. Like what? Obviously it can be messy with a lot of private like I hate banks. I hate, predatory banking practices. I hate being bamboozled and losing money and having banks make money on my savings and all this. Like, I hate that stuff. But like, I'll plead ignorance. I'm not like a Hamiltonian or whatever. Like, I don't know enough about centralized banking versus decentralized. I'm a fan right now of, the blockchain and Bitcoin. I definitely don't think that the state needs to run everything. I think that's, when we've seen that happen in history, it's been bad. So I don't agree. I'm not going to fully disagree because, like, I'd be happy to have this conversation. 9. The state should ensure that all citizens have universal basic income, decoupled from labor performance. I do support a universal basic income in a rich society like the one that I live in, or the West. Like, I lived in Berlin too. I wanted it there. Yeah, I think that basic needs should be met if possible. I do think that. I would also decouple healthcare from your labor. I don't really understand why those things are tied. Yeah. 10. Many members of the working class who vote right-wing live in a kind of false consciousness where they do not understand their own true interests. I don't like this critique of leftists. I don't like this critique by leftists of the working class. I think it's a very pretentious and out-of-touch thing to say. The thing is that the working class is being ignored by both parties, but like Donald Trump these days talks better to the working class than Hillary or Joe Biden even. Biden should have more bona fides in this department with his background, but I don't know about Kamala these days, but members of the working class are more traditional and vote their values more so than, complex tax law or something. I don't think they live in a false consciousness. I think that you don't understand their true interests if you're going to make this claim. I think that they're... Yeah, obviously, a miner in West Virginia who votes for Trump or any kind of big Republican, guy who benefits the rich doesn't fully benefit from, like, the tax breaks for the rich, like the Bush era tax breaks kind of stuff. But there is something about traditional values being upheld that matter to the working class. Certain reliable things. So I disagree with this. And I'm going to, I only kind of partly disagree, but I want to fully disagree just because I really dislike when liberals, I'm liberal, when progressives or leftists think they know better for the working class. Like, they presume that they're helping them or something in some sort of patronizing way, and they're not. 11. The state should ensure an even-handed distribution of the population across the nation's territory. Stalin, literally. this level of authoritarianism baffles me. Like, why do you want to do this? Who cares? Like, more people want to live here than there. Let them. You know, like, certain cities grow for a lot of reasons and other cities don't. And for the government to mandate that a bunch of people move to that city that's dying or whatever, like, what? I fully disagree. 12, halfway. The state should control all aspects of economic production. Fully disagree. 13, artists should have no private ownership or copyright over the works that they create. Fully disagree. I'm an artist. I mean, I'm a copyleft open source kind of guy. Like, I pirate stuff, I share stuff. I don't mind if someone else remixes my stuff. But I think that having copyright is valuable for creative people to earn wealth. It's a valuable form of wealth. It's a valid form of earning wealth. Disagree. 14. There should be a 100% tax on all inheritance. 100% tax. So all of your inheritance should go to the state? Fuck no. This is like the most envious, bitter, resentful position to have. Rich kids should be stripped of all their wealth. And if you get rich, you do not get to give that to your kids. You have to give it all to the state. And we get to decide how to spend the money you earned. I don't like that at all. I mean, I'm all for taxing things like inheritance or capital gains, or, you know, the more like the more upper class kind of taxes, as opposed to a sales tax, which is a poor tax. I support some I support more taxes on the rich, but this is going way too far. There should be no such thing as private ownership of land. The thing is, like, play that out, you know, like quite frankly, this is like what I think about homeless people on the sidewalks. Like, you don't get to own that piece of sidewalk. That is for all of us to walk on. But if you actually like have a plot, and the way things have played out in the US as an example, like, you have a plot of land and you get to improve that land by building a home, and you get to live in that home and not worry that someone else is going to knock down your door and shoot you and take over your house. That's not allowed, because the idea of property allows for everybody to flourish and respect people's boundaries. You know, good fences make good neighbors. You want private ownership of your body, don't you? Or do you think that everybody should be allowed to molest you to their own interests? Like, I don't understand this idea of destroying property. Like, I used to think like this as a teenager. It made sense to me in some oblique way. Like, yeah, why does anyone own anything? What does it even mean to own something? It means that you're allowed to create your little piece of the world, and that no one else can violate that. And that is a very important thing. So I disagree with this. I mean, it is weird to think about, like, owning land, but it's like, it made sense in terms of like the gold rush and the Western expansion, but even just like having a home and being like, look, these four walls demarcate my space, and it's not yours. Like, you're not allowed in without my consent. Like, that makes so much sense to me. And it happens to sit on land. Like, we live in a physical world. People will not work hard in countries where they cannot get rich from their work. I mean, yeah, I think that human nature and incentives are ignored by communists. Like, yeah, I basically agree with this. I fully agree. 17. The absence of a free market economy will inevitably lead to the suppression of individual rights. Well, we've seen that happen. I mean, look, a lot of people will be like, yeah, but Russia and China weren't real communism. What were they? Like, they called themselves communism. I mean, look, freedom is a good thing, in my opinion, and you know, I know a lot of communists in online spaces that I've seen, like, will say stuff like, we can't even think about freedom until we ensure the safety of everybody. Like, no, I disagree with you. I want my freedom. If somebody else isn't safe, go fight that fight, but don't tell me that freedom isn't valuable and shouldn't mean anything to me. You don't get to tell me what to do just because you think you know how to make everybody feel safe and secure. That's a totalitarian. That's what that sounds like to me. The worth of a commodity should be determined by the amount of labor required to produce it. I like how that sounds, but the fact is that value is a two-way street, and somebody has to be willing to pay that. So there's so many things. I spend so much time toiling over things that I like labors of love. And there's just no way that I could charge what the energy... there's no way I could charge the exact amount that would reflect how much energy I put into it. There's just no way to do that. So I disagree. But there's something there. Like, I do think that labor has a significant value, but that could be used erroneously. You could put all your effort into making a car that doesn't even drive on the road. You know, you could build the most beautiful looking car, and you could have it look like with a steering wheel and everything, and then there's like no engine in it, but you spent so much energy building everything else. That car is not that valuable to people that need a car. I'm not going to spend $20,000 on a car that doesn't even drive. You know what I mean? But you could have spent all your time making it. Capitalism is a precondition for freedom to flourish. I don't know if like literally it is, but I do think there's a strong correlation. Again, I'm quick to say that capitalism did not invent suffering. It also didn't invent freedom. You know what I mean? So capitalism doesn't get to take credit for that, nor should it be blamed for the ills of the world. Like, it's a system. It's kind of a newer system. The world has done amazingly with it. And we have been flourishing. But you have the freedom to flourish even in the animal kingdom without capitalism, you know? So no, it's not a precondition. Religion clouds the judgment of the masses and prevents them from seeing reality clearly. Yeah, opiate of the masses. I liked this one of Marx. I'm an atheist. I really liked this sentiment growing up. And I still kind of think it, though I have a lot more respect for religious people nowadays, and I do see a lot of value that religion does bring, even though I still am a major critic of it. I think that this statement, I don't know. Maybe I don't agree with this anymore. I don't disagree. But yeah, I mean, religion is a generic word, you know. If we're talking about Christianity or Catholicism, I don't know. There's some good stuff there, but there's a lot of bullshit as well. I kind of want to say neutral, but I guess I will still slightly agree. 21. All means of communication should be centralized in the hands of the state. Man, all these authoritarian things, like, how do you define that? Like, me yelling at my neighbor, you want to control that? You know what I mean? Like, a message in a bottle, you want to centralize that with the state? It doesn't even make sense, you know? Like, sure, you can talk about Twitter, you know, or YouTube or Instagram. You could talk about regulating that, or even the state taking it over as the new public square kind of thing, but I don't fully agree with that. Those are still private businesses. I think states can regulate, you know, the FCC is a valuable thing. It doesn't do the best stuff, but a commission to regulate communications is sensible to me. I don't think we should conclude from that the state should centralize all communication. I fully disagree. There should be no such thing as private ownership of business. Again, this obsession with like destroying ownership. I need to talk to some communist friends again, because I need them to clarify for me what they mean by that. If you're wearing your clothes and you don't own them, I guess how would you describe, like, why can't I just rip your clothes off of you and take them? Why can't I do that if there's no such thing as property? Do we now, like, have new words for that? Like, yeah, but I'm using them, so if I'm renting the clothes that we all share, then you have to respect my body? Like, what's the law? How would you word that so that we don't have that sort of anarchy? I need to hear a communist describe that. To me, private ownership is just the easiest way to describe that. Like, I privately own my clothing and you can't take it from me, and if you do, you will be arrested. That is a very clear, that's like the cleanest way to draw a line from one to the other without going through a bunch of steps. I fully disagree. Again, regulate the businesses, pay taxes, but like, why abolish ownership? I don't get that. I don't get the need to do that. 23, a one-party system would get rid of a lot of the nonsense in politics and lead to better decisions overall. Fully disagree. Man, these bootlickers. The working classes across the world have more in common with each other than they do with the non-working classes of their own countries. Workers of the world unite. This is the last question. So, I liked that phrase growing up, and I do think that the working classes have a lot to do with each other, but I think that a working class Bangladeshi does not actually have that much in common with a working class German. Those cultures are so different. Those values are so different. Those daily experiences even are so different, because a working class Bangladeshi, I think, would look a lot like slavery to a German. A lot of working class Germans work, solo or in small groups. They have the 40-hour work week. They have overtime. They have health care. They have a lot of things maybe that a Bangladeshi doesn't have, I don't actually agree with this. Let's finish. I'm not communist, y'all. 24%. Out of 100, your personal agreement with communism is low, indicating that you support few of communism's principles as presented in classical Marxian literature. But it's not zero, guys. It's 24%. You most likely believe in the necessity of private property and private business. I do. As well as the right to free economic association. Yes. And individually controlled production. Yes. I should be allowed to produce something individually if I want, and I should be allowed to own that and take profit from that. I can pay taxes also. You most likely also believe that individuals are more motivated by the prospect of personal gain, than by serving the needs of some amorphous social group. I do think that, unfortunately. I know it sounds so cutthroat and, animalistic, but I do see that playing out in my life, in my experience. Some amorphous social groups, such as society, that the individual perhaps never asked to be a part of. Alright, well, there you go, guys. I'm not a communist, but I'm not gonna throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think that capitalism and all our systems should always be questioned. All authority should be questioned. But the irony to me is that, communists are, the most authoritarian people who, have just such delusions of grandeur and, wanting to rule the world. Not everybody does want to rule the world. I don't want to rule the world. I want us to get along and to collectively just, create systems that benefit people while also harnessing our natural impulses. Alright, guys, until next time.